Hello, parents, grandparents, future parents, and curious minds. Welcome to the podcast. I'm Steven.
And I'm PJ.
And this is... Oh, shit. Dad's Discuss.
We're keeping that one in, everyone. Welcome back.
There are no second takes anymore.
There is never. Editing, what's that? Welcome back, everyone. I know sometimes we have not been able to record as often as we like, but I know recently we did release one more episode for y'all. I think we're on track to be getting one out a month, which not the best, but not terrible.
Yeah, it's better than not doing it at all, I think. And, one day maybe we'll get a rhythm down to where we can have a lot. But that kind of segues into our topic of purpose. And, what's the purpose of this podcast is to just have a chat with a friend and talk about parenting things and hopefully provide some sort of space for others to listen to what we have to say so that they can formulate their own opinions as well, and
for entertainment purposes. I mean, sometimes you get so focused on your day-to-day responsibilities of life, being a parent, that you forget to just enjoy some things. And sometimes it's nice just to sit down and hear other fathers talk about their lives, and you're like, I can really relate to that.
Someone told me the other day that they listened to the podcast and they were happy that there's more people in the space of dads talking than, because all they ever hear is like the mom's opinions. So I was like, okay, well, that fulfills that need, I guess, a little bit.
I'm glad to hear it. That's constructive feedback from our podcast. I like it.
Yeah, they didn't say the content was good, but they gave kudos though.
Fair enough. Now, that's a big one. And unfortunately, sometimes when you get so bogged down with everything, you can almost feel like you've lost that, even if you don't know what your true purpose is. Yeah. So I'm glad we're talking about this, because I know, at least from my personal experience, there's a lot of ups and downs in life, and especially with parenthood. And sometimes you're really riding that high. Maybe you just got back from a family vacation. Everyone's in a good mood. 4 weeks later, everyone's doing work. They're in school. There's homework. There's everything like that. Bills are coming in. And you can just really feel like you've lost your purpose. And I won't say words like depression and things like that, because it's not anything that is clinically diagnosed, but just the ups and downs of life. So having a goal in mind, or a focus, I think can certainly be something that helps.
Yeah, and anything as simple as a short term as far as life as humans on the earth, 18-year goal of getting your kids in college could be your purpose for short term. And then long-term, helping them find what they're called to do, sort of thing.
Yeah.
That can be a simple thing for you to have a guidepost and remind yourself, well, for now, my purpose is to take care of these kids and get them to the finish line, and then I can worry about what else I can do afterwards. Or you can go as big as, yes, I want to do that, but I only want that to be a small piece of my larger purpose, right?
I'm glad you mentioned about, and then moving on to the next step, because I've heard of many people who have a set goal in mind. And we'll just say goal, purpose, interchangeable, at least in what I'm talking about. Say they have a set purpose of hitting a specific target in weightlifting. Once they hit that, are you just going to stop? No, you'll plateau. You need to then reassess your goals. You need to create something new. So it's great to have purposes, and it's great to strive to achieve them. But once you have gotten to that point, don't stop. Set new goals, move the line further.
Yeah, because you're always going to peak. At least if you're striving to learn and grow and be better at something, eventually you're going to reach a plateau, like you said, and either you push past it or you shift your priorities.
Definitely. Shifting the priorities. I like that.
Yeah. I keep looking right past you because I just realized I have a book pointed at me that says purpose on it, and I don't know if that was intentional.
That's amazing.
That was the co-founder of the company I currently work for's book, and it was a pretty good read about, I guess he hit the nail on the head on this, where he created a company Built with Purpose is what the book's called, around his goal to reward everyone in the structure. You know, we've talked about ESOPs before and whatnot. We've probably nailed that subject to death, but the book's all centered around how he saw his purpose in life was to, you know, create somewhere where everybody can retire with dignity and, you know, hold their head up high after a long career. And, well, what we do is government contracting, but really any company can adopt it to their philosophy.
I like that. I like this. So he's had a purpose in mind. He set out and was able to achieve that, and it's been successful by what you've talked about here. So
yeah,
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, so that was, maybe I put that topic on the board after reading that book. I don't know. That topic's been up there for This topic's been up there for a little while.
It has. Well, my purpose right now is to entertain, talk with my friend Steven, and drink this lovely beer that I'm currently having. This is the Straight to Ales Stout at the Devil, one of their kind of flagship beers now. A very tasty, very dark stout.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's not their best, in my opinion, but it's definitely up there. I like the Lily Flag Milk Stout.
That one is good too.
That's so good.
I would say most of the places around here, restaurants and bars that do carry local beers, if they have a stout on tap, it's probably going to be one of those, and I'm happy about that.
Yeah, easy to find, easy to get, all the delicious.
Well, you say purpose. I mean, a lot of people have a lot of purposes or goals, but in terms of directing this towards being a parent or being a father, you mentioned about having a set goal of hoping your kids succeed, seeing them at least not necessarily just making it to 18, but
my mother-in-law tells the story plenty of times that one of their kids, they were gonna count themselves as successful parents if their kid made it to 5. So
okay,
now he's an ER doctor. So.
All right, well,
and they were very successful.
No, but seeing them some seeds, setting them up, whether that be financially, with love and care, and teaching them like the day-to-day responsibilities of how to human.
Yeah.
So hopefully that's what most parents' purpose is, and when it comes to their kids.
I think another one to add to your list is exposure, right? So you think about going back to what made you successful or me successful. I always think about what my dad introduced me to computers really early on and exposed me to that world, and it prepared me and, you know, made me interested in my classes to pursue that and learn computer engineering and all that stuff. It was like the spark. So in our household, like, the world is their oyster. We'll expose them to, you know, sports, technology, all sorts of things in the right amount for their age group. But I think that's a big thing to help them find their purpose, is get them exposed to things like Catherine's taking kids to field trips to see firefighters and policemen and gardens and what career fields exist. And anytime we go to the doctor, the kids usually come with us and they talk to their doctors, and that's how both of them are kind of like, we want to be doctors now. And then their uncle's a doctor, and then uncle's in the military, so they get exposure to military things. Dad works on military stuff.
No, I like that. And you know, and sometimes, you know, you just naturally do that without even realizing that's what you're doing, but exposing them to different things. I have heard people who have said that, you know, their parents really pushed them or strived for them to achieve like one specific thing, and when they became an adult, you know, they kind of regretted that lack of opportunity to explore other avenues.
Oh, for sure.
And I think the biggest one I can think of is parents who are like very dedicated on having their kid, like, he's going to be a football player, like he's going to be in the NFL, and they just push and push that. And yeah, they may get very skilled in that one particular area, but they end up lacking skills outside of that.
Yeah, academics might suffer, or relationships might suffer.
Exactly. So I like that you mentioned about exposing the kids to multiple different elements, allowing them to flourish, let them find what they enjoy doing, not just doing what they're told because, hey, this is what my dad wants me to do.
Yeah. And we were kind of that bridge generation where we had the lock and key parents, or whatever they call it. And at least for me growing up out in the small town, you could go do anything you wanted in the woods and come back when the sun was coming down sort of lifestyle. And that's completely different than my kids' experience because we're now city folk instead of country folk.
And I think the rural versus urban aspect definitely highlights that. Yeah, past generations may have been more willing to let kids roam around. Of course, nowadays with technology and almost everyone carrying a cell phone and everything like that, we're just more interconnected. So you have a better idea of where everyone is, what they're doing.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest part that I see is just the urbanization. People are much more lenient to let their children play alone without them being in eyesight, just on the off chance that something bad could happen.
Yeah. I feel like that's my growing up in a rural lifestyle, I feel like letting a kid out of your sight in urban is way more risky than letting them out in the rural woods.
Right. Yep.
Like, sure, there might be snakes and stuff, but you can teach them how to deal with wilderness. Can't teach them how to deal with a psychotic person that's roaming around.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
But to each their own, I guess. But yeah, that was, something that I've got to adapt to as the kids are getting older because, I have that, experience with nature a little bit more than they're probably going to get. So I got to make sure they're getting out of the city and touching trees and finding spiders and insects and stuff and not just stuck in a concrete jungle because I feel like that really opens up your mind to like having a purpose because I guess leading into that a little bit, one of the monks always told my wife, if you can't find God in nature, you can't find him anywhere. And there's not a lot of nature in an urban setting.
Yeah, fair enough.
So I think some of my best thoughts have come from sitting around a campfire in the woods, talking to friends, just like the bachelor party.
Oh, yeah, that was a fun time.
And I haven't had that in a while, so I need another one.
Yeah, and it just as you had mentioned about what piques everyone's interest, that is something that you're into. I personally myself would say I'm kind of the opposite. I find at least I'm more connected to God when I'm in like beautifully adorned cathedrals with
that's because you're a civvy.
Yeah, exactly. But like you mentioned camping at your bachelor party. Well, how long have you been married again? Because that was the last time I've been camping.
Oh, wow.
That outdoors does not interest me.
You know, reconnect with nature.
No, reconnect with the concrete.
Oh, you'd love a little comic strip that I just finished reading. It was the greatest estate developer, and it was like a civil engineer being thrown into a medieval world that doesn't have any civil engineering concepts.
Oh, wow.
And he's just like creating all these regular things to us like suspension bridges and stuff, and they're like, whoa.
That's awesome.
I was like, this is right up PJ's alley.
Oh, it is for sure. I remember there for a while, there was that trend like girls would ask their boyfriends or husbands, how often do you think about the Roman Empire? And a lot of the times, especially myself, I was like, near daily, actually, without even thinking about it. And a lot of it's just due to being a civil engineer and thinking about what they accomplished without modern technology. And if someone with modern day knowledge were to go back there, what also could have been achieved.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's kind of something I've been mulling around with purpose is like how much does technology get in the way of creativity? Like usually it enhances it, right? But sometimes if you let it distract you too much, maybe you lose sight of the original purpose of the thing you're trying to create.
I hope you're about to say that you hate AI because that's what I want you to say because I do not like it.
Yeah, the current form of AI is useful in some cases, garbage in others. But it does have the chance to evolve, in my opinion. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah, I think technology, and we've mentioned this before on the podcast, it can either be a hindrance or a help, just depending upon how you utilize it.
Mm-hmm.
But going back to the purpose and talking about exposure, I like the fact that you had mentioned about exposing yourself early to computers, and I know our children's generation, that's like all they know.
Yeah.
So, but helping them understand like the proper way to use things, helping them get fluent in because they don't necessarily use the same operating systems we use anymore. Everything's like tablet based or phone based. They're not using
A
Windows.
lot simpler.
Mm-hmm.
And teaching them how circuit boards work and how digital gates function and how to build a transistor.
Yeah.
You've been doing all that, right?
No, I have not been doing that part, but we certainly open up the hood, and because my youngest daughter, her older brother, he's essentially a mechanic now, working in the shop of a dealership, and so he's always doing something to his car, and always, bringing home different car parts. So we talk about that with her.
Yeah, I mean, even he's got to be exposed to software concepts at this point, right? Because it's becoming more and more part of the car.
It really is, absolutely.
The car. Less and less mechanical parts left. Soon you'll just be fixing axles.
You're right.
And drivetrains, I guess. But that's it's gonna be interesting. Although I hear the electronic car or the EV market's kind of taking a hit now. Hybrids are getting more popular.
Yeah, and I can only imagine it's due to still like a leniency between the general public to transition fully to EVs. And in my opinion, it's mostly just due to not having the necessary infrastructure of charging stations compared to gasoline stations.
Yeah.
So everyone who has already wanted to buy a fully electric vehicle already has. Therefore, you're not going to be seeing large sales of those new vehicles.
Yeah, and then you don't have as much incentive to build the infrastructure up if people don't continue buying it, I guess.
Exactly. Yep.
So that makes sense. Yeah. Interesting. That's a whole different market than I'm used to. Automobile market. I have never been a car junkie or anything like that. I'm like, does it drive? Does it get me where I need to go?
Success.
Success. Is it not too loud? That might be another criteria.
Oh, I like it loud.
Well, I mean, just like the drive, right? So I could listen to music or books or something.
No, I do get that. My son, he has taken both his mid mufflers and his resonators off of his vehicle, and like there is a drone inside the cabin. It's just loud in there. So I see what you mean.
Yeah, it's like, come on, I want to either talk to you or listen to something. All I can hear is wind and but yeah, that's a nice side tangent.
What were we talking about again?
Something or other.
Purpose.
Yeah, the other thing is like how, as a parent, because I've seen this in a few of people our age becoming parents and growing into their roles, like how you maintain your sense of individual and driving towards your purpose for those that don't just want to be parents, right? It is difficult. Like society does not, at least US society does not make it easy for at least both parents to follow whether it's a career or a aspiration. There really is only used to, I mean, it can be done, but the cost of daycare and things like that get in the way, and time management and all that stuff. It's hard for both parents to follow something for themselves.
Yeah, I think there is definitely a transition. You especially for someone who goes from a single life straight into a relationship, and then soon after becoming a parent, like that loss of individuality you sometimes experience, or just like your time management has to adjust to pursue those types of individual activities. We've talked about this before, but like this podcast is a great one. Like just coming out here, getting away from the kids for a while, getting to sit down with an old friend and talk.
Yeah.
Once a week I go to my bowling league, and especially once the kids get in school, I've noticed it easier to maintain that type of like individualness as you have the freedom nowadays, maybe not past generations, but if you wanted to take a day off and just go do something while the children are at school, like that's an option. And I've definitely taken that option before.
It's a good point. But as far as like life's purpose and driving, I guess maybe you can clarify that for me. Those little things that you capture aren't like a big picture thing, I guess. It's more of a grab time when I can get it sort of thing, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So,
I guess when you say big picture, though, it might be hard to become like a commercial airline pilot after you had children.
right, or a doctor or
Yeah,
something.
so you're talking more like career aspirations.
Career, or I mean, like, yeah, I guess most of it's career or educational if you wanted to learn something deeply.
Yeah, and I think that's why if you look at the statistics, most CEOs and board members of large corporations, you talk to them, what's their work-life balance, and they'll say the
Non-exist.
balance is work. Like
Yeah,
I have a wife, I have kids, but I don't even remember how old they are.
yeah,
So yeah, you're right. In terms of like a lofty career aspiration and being a parent, I'd say it's difficult
hmm,
to manage.
yeah. I think that's right. But that's fine because I think if you're gonna become a parent, I think part of your purpose that you've found is that that's what you want to be in, the role you want to be in, at least for a majority of your life. Because as soon as they're in this world, they're always gonna be there for them.
Yep.
If you're gonna make yourself a good one.
And that's not to discourage any of the future parents listening to this podcast, but it's just a realization or, realistic expectations that once you do have children, if you decide to, it does take up a large portion of your life. And some
Yeah.
other things may have to slide out of the way to make room for that new purpose in your life.
Yeah. And at least for me, the way we've played it is, if we can't both partially have our goals, then one of us better dive all in, since Catherine went stay at home mom. So it's like I spend more hours, and not too many, but more hours than I used to at work and doing extra things and volunteering more to kind of push myself to learn and grow as fast and rapidly as I can while she's out of the workforce because she's got the home front. And so that gives me more time to find my purpose and where I'm going to end up basically.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've been exploring those options and trying to figure out what more I can do to drive myself further. And that's led to I'm actually going to be pursuing selection for the Navy Reserve. So that'll be interesting.
Really? So, like, you
Yeah.
would be in the like a reserve
Position, yeah.
That's cool.
So after decade plus of helping the warfighter, I thought maybe I could try my hand at being one sort of thing.
That's
Find
neat.
some purpose.
That's really cool. So there you go. So there's a goal that you have kind of set, like a life purpose, if you will, that you believe you can actively take on while still being a good father. So
Yeah. And trying, that's another thing that in my mind pushes your children and your family to, kind of strive for something purposeful in life, and that hopefully they'd see my dedication and drive to try and accomplish something like that, and so they'd want to do the same thing.
no, I like that. And I just have to bring it up because this is something that I think about sometimes. For those of our listeners who are religious, such as me and Steven, one of the big purposes that I think about in life is making sure that my children see me doing what I believe is necessary, seeing their parents, going to church, striving to live their life according to God's code so that they in turn make that a purpose in their life as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. We brought that up a little bit in the religion podcast too. I don't think we brought up that in particular, but we had a religious podcast. Is what I mean to say. So, yeah, that's a good point. Well, maybe we talked about it. I'm rambling now, but yeah, the leading by example and showing them at least the faith they can decide on if they give or take it, but exposing them to it and making sure it's at the heart of your speech and family life and things like that.
Right, definitely, because I for one think it's, extremely important. And so I hope that they take that away. But as you mentioned, it's their decision. Like it's not something, nothing can be forced upon someone else. So.
Yeah. And you can always be there for them if they decide to break away, and maybe one day they'll come back, but shouldn't ever harbor resentment or anger or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean it's always down to you. Like you can do millions and millions of good things to help your fellow man, but in the end, it has to be their decision. Like,
yep, that is, yeah. If that's one piece of advice that might come out of this podcast, it's everybody's an individual and you can't make any. I mean, you can make people do stuff with the right authority, but it probably is gonna bite you in the end.
Oh, absolutely.
If you force someone to do something they don't want to do. Now you can, there's all sorts of forms of manipulation and things like that you can coerce people, and maybe they convince themselves that they came up with it rather than you forcing them to do it. But that's not something we divulge in this podcast, because that's
hopefully
that's another level of probably evil, or at least borderline evil, because there is some, there's some philosophical talks about how for the greater good and things like that. So would tools like that be good for certain causes? Like, we can go a little deeper on that, and just a leader knows that, maybe a canal needs to be built to save their city from whatever problem that's occurring, but all the labor forces specialized in technology or something, like they only know computers. Well, he needs diggers, so I'm going to make them go do it for the good of the city. But those people may not understand his purpose and come back and fight back, right? So
yeah, no, I mean, you talk about
hypotheticals out there.
No, I like that. That's we're getting into. You had mentioned before the podcast that you hope that we got into some like more deeper topics, and that's definitely a segue to find something deeper. What you're basically talking about, from my understanding, is like utilitarianism.
Yeah,
where the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
Right.
And a lot of times that can directly contrast with other forms of ideology such as Christianity.
True.
And so I liked your example. You have a set of people with a certain skill set. You know that they would be benefited by doing a task that is not in their skill set, so you make them do that. Mm-hmm. Now, they may resent you for it. Hopefully, in the end, they realize why this was necessary, but you as the leader have to make that decision. It's like, I think the needs of the many outweigh your few needs of not wanting to do this work at the current time.
Right, yeah. So where do you draw the line of manipulating people's time and energy for good? In quotation marks, right?
And I think, and we talked about this before on the podcast too, I think the vaccines is a good one. Like, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. So do I think that it should have been truly mandated that you have vaccines? Yes, I do. And I think the people who were anti-vax or who were unwilling to get it should have been forced to do that to protect the rest of the people.
Yeah, and then you would face the backlash of the person that thinks that the vaccine's going to do them harm, so you're trampling on their
individual
rights to say, I don't want something foreign in my body. But honestly, if you live in the United States, there's lots of foreign things in your body that are probably way worse than whatever's in a drug-controlled vaccine.
And I think our country, the mindset, especially when you talk to people of other nations, we do have a very individualistic mindset.
Yeah.
Other countries, especially over in Asia, like, they have a lot better grasp of doing things for the community or being in unity with their neighbors, while here in America it's like, well, yeah, I have a neighbor, I don't even know what his name is, he just lives next door. It's very, very individualistic, very rugged.
Yeah, you see a lot of pockets of it in the form of what today's modern language calls virtue signaling, right? Where people are like, yeah, I care about everyone in this country, but I also only care about myself.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, behind the scenes, they're like, yeah, I only care about myself. Don't tread on me. But, everybody should be able to go to a charity and get food and stuff. Like, it's all so backwards. So belief in your church to solve all the problems of those that are downtrodden is only going to go so far, rather than letting I don't know. I always still hold to the standard that government's like the number one place where you can make the most impact with charity because it's got a whole
Usually
nation.
has the resources.
Yeah.
No, I agree. And if the government is not using its resources to help its people, then what is it doing?
Right.
Well, as you can see in the current state of the world, they're not doing what I believe they should.
Doing a lot of stuff for other nations.
Yes. or
for one particular individual.
Attacking other nations, deposing their presidents and everything like that.
Yep, we're just making our president rich, I guess.
Yeah.
But I saw a report or something about how he's made like $1.4 billion just being in office this term.
And suing the IRS, which I don't quite understand how that works, but theoretically that would be akin to him suing the people of the country because our taxes fund the IRS.
Right. Very confusing. Oh, what a state we're in. Talk about purpose, like... You know how many people are out there that are probably like, oh man, my purpose is to dethrone his regime. Like,
and that brings me into something I wanted to bring up too then regarding purposes. How you feel about setting purpose or goals in life that are outside of like your range of influence. So you can set personal goals. We've talked about like career aspirations or being a good father and showing our kids different elements of the world. But if you have a purpose to do things such as like be in politics or something like that, where your range extends over many thousands and thousands of people, that can be very different. And how do you go about either achieving that or doing it in a way that doesn't compromise your moral integrity?
That is a loaded question, which I will go get another beer while I think about it.
I like that. You said deep topic.
Yeah, you just... All right, we got our beer. Let me get mine to make a nice noise for you guys. And circling back to PJ's question on how would one succeed on... I guess the overall question is gaining people's trust to where you could still maintain being a good leader in the political sphere without corrupting yourself, basically.
Yeah, and I think it's because, at least in the modern times, rarely can someone pinpoint to a politician that they're like, I believe in this person and I think that they are like moral, or I think that they are not corrupt. Majority, in my opinion, of all politicians are corrupt. So if you have a purpose of being someone with a large sphere of influence, is that something that you can maintain while still keeping your morals?
Yeah, I think it's really difficult in my mind for the current landscape. Obviously, we're probably about to go deeper because I have lots of thoughts on this topic, but that is an avenue that I have explored mentally, scenario-wise, trying to think about if politics or this Navy Reserve thing is what I want to explore next. And in my mind, the reserves would be more beneficial to myself because in politics, I would never survive. Pause. Dog's barking. That must mean Catherine's home, so let me go open the door.
All right.
And then I'll continue down that line of reasoning.
No, I like that. Yeah.
I've got it.
All right, we're back. But yeah, in my mind, following down the road of entering politics as a guy that's very middle of the road, independent kind of mindset where I can see both sides and kind of run with that, I don't think I would survive very long or garner in this climate a path forward to like victory or gain. Like, I think I could gain maybe a groundswell of individuals, but then everybody's going to see some sort of bad in one side or the other and then face something. So for an individual like me, my purpose couldn't be to do that now in this climate. You know what I mean? So it kind of gets squashed by whatever time you live in a little bit. So I think if I go gain experience elsewhere, maybe one day that door opens up to be able to be a better leader and have people actually want to follow you and things like that. And some of that comes within the way our political system is set up, honestly, credentials. Because, I mean, today, the big voting bloc, their number one priority is, do you have the chops to do the job? Because you see so many people get shot down because they're like, oh, they've only got like 2 years experience to qualify them as a politician, when the quality of a politician isn't
based on their age.
Yeah, based on your age or your experience as a politician. Like, we're supposed to be representing the people, not representing the politics. And so it doesn't make any sense. So right now, the way things are run, I don't think a guy like me could ever make it very far.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. And unfortunately, it's also come to the point where you have to have like an extreme financial leg up compared to the common man in order to even think about getting involved. I mean, it's no surprise that the people running for even local positions, say governor of a states, are like former football coaches and actors, or even at the local level on a city level, the people who are running for mayor probably have owned their own business for 40 years. Like, you cannot really get into today's politics, at least here in America, without having a substantial financial backing.
Yeah, or at least a backup plan, because there's no way. I mean, especially in state politics, like, their salaries are awful. It's like being a teacher. Nothing against teachers or really politicians either. Like, in my mind, if you're doing either of those roles, typically you're doing it at least the way society's set up right now, because you have a heart for it and you want to do. I think most politicians, most in quotation marks, are in it to do good for the people around them, but I think they get overshadowed with, the people around them have certain opinions, but they don't know. I mean, we've talked about a little bit how, you can only really know like 40 people well.
Yeah.
And everybody else is an acquaintance. So if you're representing 1,000 people, you're not going to know all of them. You're just going to get a few opinions of the people closest to you.
Yep.
That are telling you how those people feel. And you may do a good job. You may work really hard and get like 900 of them and meet their needs and support them, but the other 100 you may completely neglect, and those people are going to either hate you or never know your name because they're also not into politics. Who knows?
Yep. And so going back to like the aspect of like utilitarianism, like, you almost have to have that mindset if you want to be in politics or be a leader or manager of large groups of people, because you have to say, all right, I may know the opinions of some of these, and I know these opinions of some of these people, and the opinions of the majority is what's going to be the most beneficial, so that's what we're going to go with.
Right.
It's hard, and I think that's why going into a different type of what's the word I'm looking for, not mindset for society, but a different tract, the concept of like true communism, I don't think can work with a large amount of people.
Yeah,
like
no.
you can, once you get to a certain number of people, there's always going to be a handful that are not going to follow along.
Yep.
So you can't have like that true communal aspect.
Right. Yeah, I think you're right. I think the true definition of communism is owning the means of production, though, right? So you're not going to find that in a national scale.
No, and I don't even think you can find it really in a community scale. From what I understand, the closest that may have come to it is like some of the Amish communities, but even then they have like a tribal council of elders.
Somebody's making the decision
right,
in the
exactly.
end, rather than
everyone as
the
a
whole
collective.
Community. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's and then, that label is thrown around so wildly that people don't understand that's what communism kind of is about, is everybody has a say and owns the means. It's not a dictator that controls it, which is kind of what the current label in political society is. That's really just a dictatorship.
And I think that's just because of what we've seen from countries who have claimed to be communist, the biggest example being the former Soviet Union and now the modern day example of China.
Yeah.
Like, they claim to be a communist nation, but what they have is not.
It's just a dictatorship.
It's not communism.
They don't all own the means of production.
Yep.
It's not in their hands. The government may own the means of production, but that guy's controlling all of the government. So it's
Exactly.
not like they're voting on or like taking. They can't just walk into a building and be like, "This is mine." Like this is all of ours, sort of thing. But that would never work on a national scale, anyways, because if there's a nuclear silo, who's gonna anyone can walk in because they own it and
Yeah,
like
pretty
just
much.
use it.
Yeah,
Like
and that's why I said I don't think once you get to a certain amount of people, and it's, in my opinion, a seemingly small number, like you can't have that type of communal living, if you will.
right, and that goes into I've heard this comes from being middle of the road and listening to everybody. You hear arguments from like anarchy groups and anarchists and stuff, and it's like they'll argue, yeah, tear down the government because you don't need a government. You can just have your small pockets of communities that, where you just take care of each other and love each other and works really well. And I'm like, but how would we have gotten to the modern age if we had done that?
Right.
Like,
No, we never
we
would
would have
have.
just kept being hunters and gatherers. Like, we couldn't have evolved and shared knowledge and cross boundaries and cross the oceans if people didn't gather together with fight about ideas and come up with a purpose and a vision and drive towards it.
Yep, and it's sad what has occurred to the Native American population and across all of the Americas, but that's essentially what happened. They had communal pockets, multiple different groups that were not sharing ideas together, that were not one nation, and it just made it too easy to exploit. But then you look at previous civilizations where they had a large central government. The Roman Empire comes to mind. The French at one point.
Yeah.
When you had that centralized government and everyone with like the same purpose, you can get a lot more accomplished than having small pockets of groups.
And that's the ingenuity of the modern man, I guess. And maybe those groups are, driving towards they would rather live in a low technology, low noise bothering me environment. And maybe there's some merit to that too, but that's the beauty of the US. You can express your opinion and
Yeah. And
you can want to live that way if you want to, but you're still going to end up paying taxes because that's the system you live in.
And bringing it back to the purpose, that is one thing I do like about this, is that, for the most part, we do have the freedom to make those choices on what we want to do, both in a career, both as a parent. Like, you do have the choice if you want to not vaccinate your kids. I highly don't recommend to do that, but technically you have that choice. Like, you have the choice if you wanted to go live off the grid and homestead with your family. Again, not something I recommend, but you have that option.
Yeah, if you can pull it off, more power to you, right?
Yep.
That's gonna limit your children somewhat, depending on how far of an extreme you take it to, like we talked about earlier, exposure, because then they're gonna know homesteading and they're never gonna keep up with modern standards and things like that unless if you're smart enough to teach them those things while you're homesteading and whatnot. So, or you still send them to school where they can learn those things. So there's give and take. I mean, the life's all about pros and cons and weighing risks and what your purpose is and your drive towards something. And then I think one thing we didn't touch on is we covered leadership and leading by example to show your kids that they can fulfill their purpose. We talked about politics. We talked about exposure. And then you had a really nice list at the beginning that I forgot half of them. But one thing I didn't hear us talk about is how do you find the right amount of roadblocks to remove? Like, you talked a little bit about, hey, paying for their education and things like that, but when do you cross the line of letting them learn from experience and doing everything for them, like you see a lot of millennial parents fall in the trap of?
Well, for big items that I know are going to benefit them in the long run, I'm all for it. So our oldest has had orthodontics. Our middle child is just now has been approved to start that, so we're going to get that done as well. Just because I know, unfortunately, in the society we live in, people who have worse appearances than others get treated less dignified than those who do.
True.
So for big expenses like that, I'm all for it. And like the kids don't really have a choice. It's like this, we're going to do this for you. But I think when you say remove or limit roadblocks, you're talking about, well, maybe you could give an example.
Well, let me talk to the extremes, I guess. One extreme, and then maybe you can find a middle ground. The one far extreme would be you're in the kid's classroom once a week or whatever, yelling at the teacher because they gave your kid a bad grade, or you're paying for daily trips to the mall or in you're paying their way through school and they don't have anything to worry about because you're going to find them a job when they get out of school at your company that you started and all that stuff, versus the other extreme where you don't have the time to care for taking care of their individual needs because you're trying to put bread on the table, or maybe you're distracted with something else, so it's all on them and they've got to figure out life themselves. And there's some perfect balance in the middle there, I think.
Yeah, and there is, but there's also it's a varying scale because, as you mentioned before, every person is a unique individual, and one approach for one child is not going to be the same approach you're going to take for the other child. I'll just use my own kids as an example. So our oldest, who is now a mechanic, doing very well, probably eventually will make more money than I do as an engineer. He did not show any aspirations in wanting to go to college. Therefore, we did not have like a college fund set up that I know I've heard you mention before, like setting aside money to eventually help them go to college, because that wasn't necessary.
Right.
Now, that's not the case for like some of my younger ones, especially my youngest. She has mentioned multiple times, and I truly believe this, she wants to be like a veterinarian.
Oh, nice.
So in that case, you have to start planning for, well, how can I help you succeed in that goal? That is going to be like a collegiate course degree that you're going to have to obtain.
Right.
So yeah, there definitely is a middle ground of how much you're involved in their life, how much you help them, but it is going to vary between child to child.
True. And the way you tailor yourself's not going to be the same. But then you... I don't know, maybe I think about things in the future too much, but then you're causing sibling dynamics that you're showing favoritism on one over the other.
No, it's just because hopefully they have witnessed your parenting style and love you enough that they recognize you're not necessarily showing favoritism, you're just helping them each in their respective direction.
Yeah, accomplish their desired purpose, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Yep. Like another example, some children are much more that's not a word, gosh. Technologically savvy than others. And so the one who is, you may not have to assist them as much when it comes to fixing their own computer.
True.
While the other person, you may just have to be like, I don't know what programs you downloaded or anything, but we're just going to have to scrap this and buy another computer. This one's unsalvageable.
Don't scrap it. Just reload the OS, man.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Don't go buy another computer. We can fix it.
But what if buying another computer gets me better options? You know?
Yeah, well, give me the old one so I can...
Steven wants my old hard drive, y'all. I don't know.
No, I just want the graphics card.
The graphics, it's not worth anything.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I've heard a little bit of that advice before. We touched on it way back when the podcast started, and we talked about school choice, right? And that I had advice from a coworker about, one of their kids expressed interest to go to public school after being in private school for a long time, and they said, sure, we'll try it for a year, but you have to stick it out the whole year. And then they flourished in public school compared to private school, and they didn't see that coming. So that was they really hammered it home for me that, don't have your mind set on every kid doing the exact same thing.
Oh, for sure.
Because they can vary pretty quickly. And I mean, you talked about it during that time too, how your middle child is going through a different program for high school compared to the public school, right?
Yep, and flourishing in it, like loving it, and it allows him more time to focus on pursuits that he enjoys. He practices his guitar, I swear, more hours of the day than he does in his school, but he's making all A's and B's in his school, so
That's
like I
awesome.
have nothing negative to say. So,
that's very cool.
yep. And well, I mean, it's very obvious even for yourself, myself, any of our listeners who have siblings. For the most part, you probably all grew up with the same parents. You all grew up with their parenting styles. Tell me how many of you act any type of way similar to your siblings, or are you completely opposite people?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, at least in this stage in life, right? Because, when you're younger, you're like, oh, we're very similar and we think the same things. And you grow up and then you spend some time apart and now you're like, oh, I see the differences.
Yeah.
Whatnot, and how we disagree and how we've interpreted the world that we both grew up in. Because everybody's got a different perspective.
Yep. I just thinking about society and people's purpose. This is a great topic, great question, because everyone is different, and you may have two people that grew up in the exact same household, had the same opportunities in life, they played the same video games, read the same books, and they still turned out to have two completely drastically different purposes in life, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Which is definitely wild. And then you diving deeper into the philosophical rabbit hole that we have this episode, the infinite expanse of thinking towards your individual experience in that perspective and multiplying that by the sideways 8 and thinking about how that's happened to an unlimited amount of people over history.
This is true. And before I continue, I just have to mention to our listeners that Stephen, when he said sideways 8, literally drew the infinity symbol in the air with his finger. Okay.
Well, you're partially Italian. You know how you have to use your hands.
My hands are constantly moving while I'm talking.
Yeah, one day we'll have to figure out how the video thing works for this podcast because people will love that.
Oh my gosh. What was the question?
I don't know, man. We've drifted, we've talked, we've come and gone, we've talked philosophy, and it's over an hour now, minus edit time. So I don't know how much more you want to cover for now, and we can always circle back to life's purpose.
I guess
any topic really.
Yeah, no, I like this. We may leave this one up on the board so that we can come back to it again, but this is just something that everyone has to think about. And I hope that you think about it more than just a surface level, like, what is my purpose in life? What is my purpose here on this earth? And there's a lot of different competing ideologies out there. Mm-hmm. You have, some of the ones we've mentioned, there's Christianity, there's utilitarianism, communism, different ways that people think society should interact. But you yourself have to come up with what you want your purpose in life to be. And hopefully, as a parent, part of that purpose is to be the best one you can be.
Yeah. Or even an individual without kids. I mean, I don't know if anybody's going to click on a podcast that doesn't have kids to get parenting talks, but if you are, then, you have a purpose too. And what is that? What are you driving to fulfill? We are the generation of people considering not having kids, right? You see all the graphs about our generation being the first negative decline in birth rates and stuff like that for the nation. So
very true.
Those of you that aren't.
Yep. I have plenty of friends who did remain childless, and then surprisingly enough, I had a lot of friends who I thought probably would never have children, and then decided later in life that they did want a child or two.
So drive yourself towards something, I guess, because in my mind, if you don't have your purpose, at least in existence, you're going to, like you alluded to at the start of the podcast, start drifting down dark rabbit holes and lose vision.
Yeah, especially in today's day and age. We've talked about this before, and I think it's worth repeating. don't get sucked into the technological pitfall of social media too much. It can be a useful tool, but I think there's, at least in my opinion, more drawbacks to it than there are positives.
Yeah, for sure. And for those Catholics out there that are listening, by the time I get done editing this, it'll probably be the Lenten season, so maybe you give up social media.
So that is a great idea. I appreciate you mentioning that.
Yeah, it's one I'm considering. But then you gotta draw the line on what's social media and what's for.
Yeah, right.
Anyways, any other nuggets of wisdom before we go?
No, I appreciate all of our listeners' time. Please like and subscribe. Continue to listen and support us. If you're enjoying us, reach out to your friends and tell them to give us a like, give us a listen.
Yeah, and maybe leave a comment or two. I'm noticing the comment sections on our podcast are a bit lacking. We'll mention that earlier in the podcast, because this is me signing off, but I look at the analytics sometimes, and very few people make it this far in the podcast. So if you're here, thank you.
Thank you, yes.
Give a comment if you're still here. All right, bye.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to Dad's Discuss.
Please like and subscribe wherever you are listening.
Also, comment any topics you would like us to discuss and share this with your friends and family.
Finally, if you would like to be on the podcast or discuss any topics, please reach out via our contact information below.